Jalbert Broccoli's Jimothy Tiberius Bond is a fictional British spy / prostitute who shoots a lot of people with his gun and penis respectively. He's the main character of a number of films, starting from Dr. No Means No back in 1963 up until Skyfall, and maybe there's some after that one or whatever. He has been played by many actors, but the one that really pierced my Brosnan, if you catch my drift, was Daniel Craig. But Pierce Brosnan wasn't bad either. One of his films was Goldeneye, which was well received for reining in the absurdity of the Roger Moore James Bond and providing a more realistic spy experience. Something that would again get out of control in the Brosnan era that Daniel Craig in Casino Royale would again bring back to the series. But I digress. After the movie, the task of making a video game on the movie was given to hotshot developers Rare. And what can I say except that it's the greatest console shooter of all time. It was definitely the greatest console shooter of the time. Its impact on me and everyone I knew was evidenced by when I went over to my friend's place and we'd all crowd around a small CRT TV playing split screen multiplayer. And that's why I give GoldenEye 5 slaps to the face and slappers-oni out of 5. See you next time. Wait a sec, let me stop the intro. Shut up. Anyway, of course GoldenEye gets a perfect score as it is a game I love. I'm nostalgic about it, I remember the Christmas I received it and the hours playing the campaign. But what I hope to do with this video is to explain why I think it's great. So the score is just like in an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Because everything's made up and the points don't matter. So let me explain why I love GoldenEye 64 on an emulated copy of GoldenEye 64. That's why you might see some graphical glitches like this. No matter, let's go! Wrong series! Single player is a dying element in FPS shooters. I hear Titanfall 2 has a cracking single player, with varied and interesting levels and awesome set pieces. Obviously Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2 had some classic single player moments, but for the rest, single player is treated like a vestigial nipple tacked onto the ripped torso of a robust multiplayer experience, where the competitive scene can arise and the developers get long-term revenue through loot crates or blah blah blah. But when I think of great single player campaigns, I think Quake 2, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Half-Life, Deus Ex, System Shock 2, see the trend? They're all PC games. But this was console gaming, son. Spoiler alert, I'm not actually your father. This meant reduced system specs and smaller levels. Yet GoldenEye's single-player campaign does something quite remarkable. By breaking it up into missions, it really feels like you were a secret agent, jet-setting from St. Petersburg to Severnaya to Cuba. The menu with the passports adds to this feeling. The missions covered all the main set pieces of the movie, and there was significant attention to detail by the developers to match the scenes of the film. Although when I first played the game, I had no idea it was a movie, but the campaign still delivered. And whereas PC FPSs tended to have really long levels that flowed from one to the next, this allowed for a long campaign to be composed of many shortish, varied levels which could more easily fit on consoles. GoldenEye's campaign starts in line with the movie, where we see a cinematic shot of the dam 9 years ago, rendered in all its Nintendo 64 glory, before seeing a quick overview of the level, and then, in a David Lynchian fashion, steering the camera directly into the head of Bond as he aimed a gun like a cool dude. You are now Bond. You are now a cool dude. Side note, playing this game was the first time I felt like a cool dude. Dam is a simple level enough, a linear section of encounters with an optional snipe opportunity, and a mysterious body of water, before ending with a great set piece, also from the film, where Bond jumps off the dam. I did this and was like, man, I hope he survives, that bungee cord is barely 1 pixel thick. Starting the second level in the vents, Bond does the most spy thing one can do, and slaps the hat off a man on the shitter. There are many sciencey rooms here in this labyrinthy level, but Bond ultimately has to blow up these tanks as per the movie. You escape to level 3, initially in a tank, but because tanks can't fly, he uses a plane instead in a thrilling escape. You have to find its keys first though. The next level's surface ditches the linear rooms and hallways of previous levels and puts you in the large open snowfields of Severnaya. As a result, you'll be running and hearing gunshots around you somewhere, and you have to spin around hoping to find them before they find you. Back to the labyrinthine levels of Bunker. And this level I do remember being quite large, but looking at it as an adult, it's quite small. But it has a lot of spy shit to do, particularly copying the Goldeneye key as per the movie, and even holding Boris Grushenko hostage to do some computer stuff. It is also the first of many levels where the objective is to disable all surveillance equipment, which requires you to shoot all cameras in the level, and not the TVs, on account of that they are TVs and not surveillance equipment. If you were to shoot the TVs in an attempt to disable all surveillance equipment, you might be some kind of idiot. The next level is Silo, which I believe is not in the movie at all, but the random hodgepodge of levels with the thinnest of narrative threads makes its inclusion in this game seamless. Not that I'm complaining, it's another level with cool locations and new objectives, and it has more men than my local gay bar. Next we are off to a ship sailing on toxic radiation, which I hope is an emulation error and not the supervillain's plan of world domination coming to fruition. It's amazing how they turned this scene from the movie that has no action into an awesome run and gun level on the ship where you have to save hostages and disarm bombs with the bomb disarmer in your inventory and not by shooting them. Next we are back to Surface, not the last of the repeated levels, but it's never a detriment to the game, as there is both a narrative reason to return as well as changes to the level. Now we are at dusk with different objectives and we can no longer exit the level the same way. The constant enemies spawning behind you as you run strafe looking for surveillance equipment is a bit of a pain to be honest. But on the upside you blow up a helicopter, and then you get caught, so there you go. Back to Bunker, and it's a larger map now with ever spawning guys, so you have to keep pushing forward. But you have to break out of jail first. Nice bit of environmental storytelling there. And putting a camera where Bond last broke in is a nice touch. But of course this is an escort mission, so I can't tell if Natalia is ice cold or stupid with 2 O's. Her AI is simple, but you gotta be the better man and shoot bad guys over her shoulder, not through it. Escape and head on to Statue, a very unique level with maze-like architecture on a sprawling uneven plain. You have to meet with this guy and then Sean Bean in another conversation that takes place in real time. You have to unarm yourself to complete the rendezvous objective, but after that you can shoot your way out anytime you please. Return to the helicopter because Natalia was kidnapped or something, this will happen again, watch it blow up, retrieve the box nearby, and then get shocked by the new man and other men pointing all their guns at you. Shit must have gone down in the movie because it is also going down here. Note to self, do not shoot them. So you get taken hostage, but surprisingly they don't take my gun, so okay. The next level starts in an interrogation scene. There is a gun in front of you, but it instantly sets off the guards, so I much prefer to waltz around the table, slap this guy, and then with a gun, do a swivel and shoot guy number 2. Men constantly spawn on this level as well, which I don't appreciate, so I keep pushing forward until I find their spawn room to stem the man flow. This is a beautiful level, full of bookshelves and an attic for getting the jump on guys, but that requires manual aiming. Ew. Rescue Natalia because of course, but be sure to follow her as she runs to the attic, otherwise she will quickly despawn. Quick chat with Mishkin, and I'm just appreciating being in a shooter with 2 NPCs that I must not shoot. Feeling like a real spy over here. Jump out a window with Natalia, and naturally next mission in the streets, she's kidnapped again. I really appreciate the architecture on this level. I feel I don't have to go to St. Petersburg in real life now, which will save the cost of a plane ticket. On 00 Agent, I have to take a quick trip down this alley, on foot, to speak with this actor, before jumping in the tank and off we go. This level is not really a power fantasy, you are too slow, aiming is too slow, and enemies use mines and rocket launchers to get you. I do this level as fast as I can, I dodge the cars, run over whichever men I can, and avoid rocket launcher streets, and find the exit. The next level is the pot, and in this pot is a depot. If you feel like guys are coming out of the woodwork in this level, you're not wrong. They come out so frequently that the universe just births them into existence in front of your eyes. There are some objectives scattered in the many warehouses in this level, but the rest is for spawning armed men. One cool touch I like about this level is when you board the train at the end, if you bum rush the 2 guys at the end without killing them, there is a little bonus scene where Bond kills them. It's great. Train is an iconic level, but it has a bullshit start. First of all, many men can see you when even your pinky toe pops out from behind the boxes. The boxes, which are your cover, explode, and worst of all, you're stuck with your pea shooter, despite getting a rocket launcher and heaps of machine guns in the previous level just before you hopped on the train. The first 2 rooms are the worst with confrontations. Best to pop a door open, run back and sneak shoot who you can. In the carriages you have guys and locked doors try to ambush you when you go past. And at the end of the level, an iconic moment from the game when Natalia's at gunpoint, and you as the player have to decide what to do. No quick time event here, boyo. Of course you have to shoot Urumov, but Natalia needs Boris's password and she takes too damn long for that. So as a hint, you have to shoot Xenia as well to buy yourself more time for that 00 objective. And then bust open the hatch with your watch laser. Yes, I did have difficulty with this, thanks for asking. And escape the train with Natalia, simple. Next is Jungle, which is visually unique, but shows GoldenEye does not do natural environments well. Flat blocky facilities? Fine, but tree walls? My god. I do like how the trees form a canopy blocking the sky, and how trees are wide enough to act as very useful cover. Enemies here have high powered weapons, so grab them and use that zoom to pierce the fog and detect upcoming turrets. I like how this is the only level without a theme, instead relying on ambience and crickets. The fight with Xenia just happens out of the blue past a bridge, but don't go too far or this guy will get you. The last part of the level has infinite guards in a cave, but here Natalia's AI really came into her own. And another cool touch, the outro movie for the level has Bond equipped with the last weapon you are holding.
Here we go.
I love the half cave, half facility aesthetic of Control, but boy howdy does it start doing some bullshit. You have to put yourself in a position to snipe the edges of these turrets without them seeing you, which is the hardest for the first. The music on this level rules, not that you'll notice it much, with a trying scene where you'll have to back up Natalia while she does computer stuff. Make sure to go to the top floor and get the armor in this grate here before getting Natalia, you'll need it. The objectives on 00 Agent difficulty have scaled way back, instead you'll notice enemies hurt more and have a laser targeted to your backside. This leads to caverns, no more AI thankfully, and another level where nature intersects with artificial domains. Oh, look at this water, it's so precious, and look at these sphincter doors, so cute. In another level I'd be more familiar with if it wasn't so hard, it again starts you off in an immediate firefight. Thankfully you have your guns from the last level to make this a fair fight. And these idiots putting explosive barrels next to this innocent scientist and the radio I need? Alec once again goes haha too slow like a fucking Looney Tunes villain, and once again the game throws some more shit at you, forcing you into a room with 2 turrets and sporting big dudes with bigger guns behind you. If you do make it to the next elevator of safety, the last level Cradle awaits. And continuing the theme of starting you off in some bullshit, you only have your pea shooter while guys come down the narrow lane with high powered guns. You can stay at the column for cover, but a time limit appears and a guy also spawns next door.
Hello there.
Get a gun and enjoy the minimalist appearance of the level. It's 95% skybox. The massive structures are neat to see when they're not culled out. In this room with the guns, destroy the computer to stop the timer, and 006 wants to go play hide and seek with a big ass gun. If you see where he is waiting for you, try to space some bullets before he hits you for maximum damage. With enough damage, he'll go to the final zone at the bottom area, and drop to the bottom platform. Having mowed down about 1000 dudes in the game, how do you make a one-on-one exciting? Well, make it on a perilous platform over an abyss. I was already running low on ammunition in this level, resulting in me slapping a few dudes for ammo, and the mechanics where Bond gets shot pushes it back slightly closer to the edge, so it was very tense. But you succeed. Or don't. And you catch a helicopter to make out with Natalia. And we see all the actors, scientist, Janus operative, and who could forget civilian. But that's not the end. Completing the game on Secret Agent unlocks Aztec, based on the 1970 whatever Roger Moore film Moonraker. It too starts you off in some bullshit, in a small alcove with 3 heavily powered men. Even if you do survive, you might not work out how to exit the room as the door is hidden, and it was hiding some more bullshit. But this level has some really great rooms like the computer room, and these parts of the temple that are just like, wow. It's level design that you won't see in the main game, with its maze-like staircases. You come across a rocket, and you must avoid insta-death from the thrusters by blowing up these computers and going through the vents. There's also a fight with Jaws, and how do they make this fight with him interesting? Just add a shitload of health. But by this point I was dual-wielding Moonraker lasers, which was an absolute power fantasy. It was a bit of backwards and forwards, and you had to know that this computer up here controlled the blast chamber, but it was rad. Just as rad as Egypt, which unlocks if you complete all levels on 00 Agent. Agent starts off in a massive temple in a room with a pond. Guards pop up every time you change rooms, so you are never clearing out an area. Fight Baron Samedi in this big room or get the golden gun, which requires a specific path to cross the floor. Not sure exactly how you would know this before the internet, but hey. Once you do, the next fight with Baron goes quicker, plunging the stage into darkness. Find another path out and kill him a 3rd time to finish the game, with the Baron laughing his ass off for some reason. Not sure why, he died 3 times, so good for him. There were a few story moments sprinkled throughout the campaign, which, outside of the level introduction scene, were necessary to deliver the main threads of the story. Don't get me wrong, many elements of the movie's plot were skipped or very neglected, such as Valentine just appearing in one level, or the purpose of Boris Grushenko being quite obscure if you haven't seen the movie. They were slow-paced and involved no voice acting, but broke up the action and themselves were cool set pieces. I mean, who could forget Alec Trevelyan's death on the 2nd level, the reveal in the graveyard level, the showdown with Urumov on the train, being a prisoner in the archives, a showdown in the jungle with Xenia Onatop, or how about the finale where you kill Sean Bean again in a dramatic moment emulating the film. In fact, those moments where he is one step ahead of you but takes the elevator or drops down the hatch are so cool as it happens during gameplay. He is literally one step ahead of you. My favourite moment, which was not related to the story at all, was in Caverns, where Boris tells you not to mind him only before pulling a gun on you, and then dropping it. You can kill him, or he can run away shouting he's invincible, like in the movies, but it doesn't matter. It's just a nice little moment marrying the cinematics of the film to the playing of the game. Again, these were hugely cinematic, and even though the player could move around during these moments, they made everything feel more dynamic and personal. For instance, the reveal in the graveyard required you, as the player, to peek out from behind the statues and see the character yourself, to reveal who Janice was. In the bridge, you, the player, had to look around for Xenia before she blows you up. If you encounter Boris, you can pick up the gun right after it drops it and shoot him with it if you like. In Alec Trevelyan's death scene, you, the player, had to set off the explosives to finish the level. Or you could try to kill the Colonel holding Alec hostage and avoid gunfire from the guards. You could experiment with the cutscene in real time. Hell, even if you die, the game can't help but be cinematic, showing you a slow motion of your death from multiple angles. In a way, while the cutscenes which would be implemented in the spiritual sequel, Perfect Dark, were far more cinematic, it loses some of that player engagement. One other cool thing that sets GoldenEye apart from other FPS single players is the huge amount of spy shit in the levels. And these were usually linked to the objectives for the level, which usually copy-pasted them straight from the movie or were extra miscellaneous spy stuff the developers could put in the level. You could not treat this as a standard FPS, i.e. shoot everyone and everything. You could shoot all the dudes and get to the end of the level, but if you didn't complete your super secret spy objectives, then you're failing spy class, Sonny Jim. Not to mention many levels have key characters or innocentish scientists who, if they got shot, you might as well restart the mission because you failed. Levels would often have computer rooms sprinkled throughout, offering cover but exploding if shot too much. You would be given spy gadgets as well, which you had to use particularly on higher difficulties to unlock doors or steal people's personal information, or whatever that objective was. And other times still, you had to pick up some secret documents, or do a thing with a switch, or use the gadget on the What's-It. Use a computer, shoot a thing with my knock gun, use this computer, shoot that computer, take some photographs, and of course blow up this one. Some objectives I remember being very obtuse, like copying the GoldenEye key in Bunker, or planting some explosives in Silo. It required some trial and error, looking at what was interactable in the level and what I had in my inventory, but often if I just read the mission briefing, it often cleared things up. Silo even has very detailed room names telling you where the explosives should go, so fuck me, am I right? Although some objectives, like planting the tracker and dam, require you to put it exactly in this terminal in the wall hidden behind these boxes. Why? Because. These tasks, although very simple in a gameplay sense, really made me feel like a spy. This is just what the James Bond does, stupid. And what was even more neat with these objectives was that as you did levels on higher difficulty, more objectives were introduced. This added to the challenge. On top of more difficult enemies, players must also problem solve how to do the new objectives, often finding their ways to portions of the map that you would never see on easier difficulties. This added a huge amount of replayability to the game. In fact, the single player is so fun and the levels relatively quick that you can just jump in and have fun straight away. Between all the great levels and cool spy shit, it is a campaign that is uniquely GoldenEye and not matched, even by its spiritual successor. One of the great things about this game is the arsenal. There are a huge variety of guns. You start off with a PPK pistol, but quickly in the first level you get access to some semi-automatic bullet sprayers and a sniper rifle with a great opportunity to use it. Throughout the levels you'll come across a huge variety of guns that differ in appearance, so that you know what you're carrying, and firing patterns. My faves have to be the dual RCP-90s because oh my god. And the grenade launcher was fantastic too, but the Clob was complete garbaggio. And you can see all these gun models in 3D in your watch menu. Interesting tidbit with these guns, I always assumed that they were names of real guns, but obviously Rare couldn't use the names of real guns because Nintendo is family friendly or whatever, so they made fake names, which was so convincing that as a stupid kid I assumed that they were real gun names. But it wouldn't be Bond without the gadgets. Bond has access to some mines, which set off either based on a timer or proximity to guards, which led to some humorous stealthy situations, and there was a whole lot of other gadgets that made it feel truly unique compared to other shooters. During a mission you might have to use your watch laser to open a grate, or to use some technology to hack a computer. Some of these were highly situational tasks, like the data downloader or the GoldenEye key copier. Figuring out the right place to perform them was fun. Other gadgets could be used whenever and function like your weaponry, with their own ammunition and use in combat. Like on the train I can zap these guys in the eye with my laser watch. Kablow! All these gadgets provided much needed variety to missions, breaking up the numerous gunfights in each level. Hell, it even made you feel like a spy, which was awesome, and very unique for shooters at the time. And they were a fantastic excuse to look at Bond's hands. I mean, look at these hands. Best hands on the Nintendo 64. Now, part of the fun of gunplay depends on the stuff that does the shooting, and part depends on the things you shoot them with. Although enemies in the games were all humans with different coloured uniforms, they were elevated compared to other shooters at the time due to their advanced AI. Not by today's standards, I guess, but taking cover and doing staged tuck and rolls were groundbreaking at the time. Some enemies had specific behaviour baked into their AI, which made them look like members of Mensa. This garden facility tries to activate the alarm when he sees his best friend die. Terrorists on the boat will execute hostages if they see you and don't get taken out in a specific amount of time. This guy is doing a poo-poo, and there are several guys in the train waiting to ambush you. And these level-specific behaviours, in addition to their advanced movement, made gunplay a bit more challenging. Also unique for the time was guards' awareness to loud weapons, leading to an interesting player choice between using silenced weapons or more high-powered guns at the expense of alerting half of Russia on your ass. And another special touch was the situational, I've been shot in my insert body part here animations. Shooting them in the arm makes them wave their hands in the air like they just don't care. Shooting them in the leg makes them hop around like they just don't care. Shooting them in their head does more damage and, importantly, causes their hat to become an independent game object, subject to the whims of the physics engine. Shooting them in the penis is also possible. You sicko? While cool to look at, they were mechanically important as it gave the players a few seconds breathing time, which when you had many enemies facing you down and you needed to reload, were life-saving, particularly on higher difficulties, resulting in many instances of corridors filled with dudes and Bond effectively juggling their hurt animations with inaccurate submachine gun fire. And in these instances, with guards rolling around like toddlers at a kindergarten or flailing around like extras getting shot in a Tarantino movie, the AI really elevated the gunplay to fun. One thing to note about shooting dudes is... Sorry, I just spaced out and looked at the sentence that I just wrote out of context. Okay. One thing to note about shooting dudes is that it is not just using the mouse for aiming. Remember, we're on the Nintendo 64, so you had to use this. Thankfully, the devs at Rare were aware of the more challenging aiming with whatever this is, and included a pretty generous auto-aim. Just aim in the general direction of the enemy and watch that gun go whoop. You can aim manually by pressing the R button, allowing for precision shots like headshots. But I find the aiming in this mode to be slow, and you have to hold your thumb awkwardly on the analog control to keep the cursor at a specific target. I mean, just look at me struggling to hit targets like cameras and alarms. Sure, Trevelyan was a fitting final boss, but if the game's actual final boss was this button, I would be straight up fucked. I would only resort to manual aiming when I had a sniper, sometimes, but not often, because if Bond gets hurt, usually because your feet are planted to the ground as you try to control your wandering crosshair, he gets pushed back and stops shooting for a brief moment, which might be realistic but is frustrating to play as it messes up the manual aim I'm trying to do. And it is punishing as one mistake leads to more damage, preventing you from moving or shooting back. The best way to play GoldenEye currently is to use the Nintendo 64 emulator and add the mouse injector by Grassloo, link in the description, to play the game using modern mouse and keyboard controls. Ironically though, this makes the game too easy. Enemies' slow reaction time and the extended I've been shot animations are really tailored to the fact that manual aiming is slow and laborious. But with the OG controls, as much as I can, I avoid manual aiming and instead I just slide around the level, trying to get my sights within the auto-aim region of the enemy, which is helped by Bond's movement. He doesn't walk, he slides, and with great speed. The left and right strafing move is absolutely necessary. Firstly, it's fast, and combined with a run can increase your movement speed significantly. But secondly, it acts as a great cover mechanic for when you pop out behind a wall, take a few shots and then pop back to reload. It gives GoldenEye a very fast arcadey feel, which is sensationally fun, helped massively by the great... Yeah, I'm not going to say anything here. GoldenEye music has been playing through this whole video. Yes, it's all MIDI quality, but yes, it's good enough that I listen to these tunes to this day. No other shooter has music this good. But in GoldenEye, it's all good. Every level. As I go through the level music, starting with damn, more like damn. Facility, more like wow. Runway, more like run into my ears, way. Fourth level, more like I'm stopping this bit right here. Shout out to the metal intro theme, the chill pause menu theme, and the even chiller elevator music, with the same melody ramped up being used for the action later in the level, which is a little thing I like to call dynamic music, which a little composer called Grant Kirkhope did previously on a game called Bajanord Krasinski 64. Jesus Christ, Grant, share some talent with the rest of us. Cheats are generally cool, but in GoldenEye they were really cool. You had your standard invincibility, access all guns, infinite ammo, which made levels a breeze, and then you had unlocked special weapons like the golden gun from multiplayer, or the laser in Magnum. Or cheats that give you two high-powered weapons to create absolute carnage. an opportunity you don't often get from single player. Dual wielding rocket launchers, anyone? You can change the animation too. You can make it fast or slow or even turbo if James Bond has drunk too many Monster energy drinks. You can give the enemies rockets, which is fun. You can make Bond invisible, which gives you the unique experience of being invisible. And then we get to the god tier cheats. Tiny Bond makes you small and the enemies in the level huge and is really fun. Paintball mode leaves paintball splats where bullet holes would be left, allowing James Bond to effectively become Vincent van Gogh with 2 ears. I call this work, I shot at a wall with cheats on. But the absolute best was DK mode. I guess cause Rare made DK64, they must have had monkeys on the mind. DK mode horrifically stretches all of the human models into disproportional monkey monstrosities with large heads, long arms and small bodies. To say it looks ridiculous is an understatement, but it sure makes headshots easier, and it definitely improved cutscenes too. Getting these cheats required mastery of the game. It wasn't just a matter of pressing a secret code using the controller, although there was some of those too. To unlock, you needed to speedrun a certain level on a certain difficulty. Generally speaking, the harder the time and difficulty, the better the cheat. And the game would tell you what time to beat to get the cheat too, so they weren't all that secret. But they weren't meant to be. If you happen to be somewhat of a spy yourself, you might have noticed that there is a fucking menu option for cheats right here. And in fact, you were likely to stumble upon my favourite cheat, DK mode, entirely by accident, by playing Runway on Agent difficulty with a very generous 5-minute completion time. And what the developers did is they really played into the game's strengths, level replayability. There was one cheat per level, so you had to revisit each level at least once to unlock the cheat. The specific difficulty level required by the cheat meant that you were exposed to different spy objectives, or spobjectives as they say in the industry. And the time limit meant you had to play the game fast, which is where gameplay really transcends into something special. With the levels being fairly short and Bond practically ice skating around the maze of each level, you hit this really nice stride of ice skate, strafe, auto aim shoot, strafe, ice skate away and repeat as you go through the level. In the regular single player, I'd often sit in a corner and let the simple AI conga line into my crosshairs. But you can't do that here, you have to keep pushing forward to beat that time. It was thrilling by the seat of your pants gameplay. On repeated attempts, you would learn the map layout, where enemies were, although some patrolled a set route, and where the pickups and objectives were, making you better on each attempt. It was arcadey combat to the nth degree, equal measures fun and challenging. And once unlocked, you could use a cheat on any level. However, you could not progress through the game using said cheats. They were just there to simply have fun on the levels you had already unlocked. And that ultimately is what these cheats were. Fun. A slapper is a British slang term for a promiscuous woman. In other news, GoldenEye famously had a multiplayer component, although it was somewhat tacked on late during development, as console shooters at the time were traditionally only single-player experiences, and multiplayer shooters on the PC were limited by dial-up internet. So no console shooter even attempted multiplayer given how new 3D was, and the limitations of the Nintendo 64 hardware. But Rare, the young guns that they were, implemented it before even getting approval, the mad lads. It was the first multiplayer FPS on console, and many people's first multiplayer experience. GoldenEye became the king of multiplayer. Sure, the single player was fun, but you could play multiplayer with friends forever. You could hardly find the game in Blockbuster to rent, it was so popular. I have a distinct memory of the GoldenEye multiplayer at my friend's house. I had the game and I played it a bit myself, but with no AI for opponents, it's not that great. Spoiler. But me and my parents had to go over to my friend's house for some school thing, along with other kids and parents. And he had GoldenEye. Anyway, I won't use his real name, so let's call him Erection. And I said, "Hi Erection. Whoa, nice boner." You see, Boner was his dog's name, but not his real name. And I'm rapidly getting sidetracked. Anyway, there were more than 4 of us, and luckily we had 4 controllers. And we all huddled in the back room and played 4-player multiplayer on a TV that I would guess was about 30cm by 30cm? Because TVs were square back in the day, that shit was crazy. Anyway, and the collective energy in that room was indescribable. We were giddy with enjoyment. Even those just watching the mayhem were having fun. Sure, you could screen cheat, but each portion of the screen was so small and the levels so maze-like and homogeneous, you were never quite sure. Multiplayer just had a magic about it. I've never experienced more fun in a local multiplayer game. Multiplayer in GoldenEye excelled in the same way that Smash Bros did, and that was with replayability. There were so many different combinations. Firstly, there were different game modes. There was your regular deathmatch, but other modes inspired by Bond films. One where you only have 2 lives, a golden gun where every single bullet leads to death, and the Living Daylights, which is flag tag for some reason. You can change up weapons as well, from the aforementioned slappers only, to the always fun machine guns and the mutually assured destruction of rockets only. Although mines always stood out as a great choice, and the game changed to where can I throw this mine to catch someone out. There are a metric fuckton of characters in the game, from Bond himself all the way to Boris and NPCs, and characters from other Bond films like Jaws and Baron Samedi, or Oddjob, who had a smaller hitbox than the other characters and was the player of choice for a dirty cheetah pants on feeder. Excuse me. Level choice was a bit smaller than the character roster, but these levels were largely based on the single player missions, which have been adjusted to be large and labyrinthine. And not to forget that you could turn on cheats for the multiplayer. It was just plain fun. Once you got into the level, the players will zoom into each of their characters' noggins and set off ice skating around the labyrinths, flavoured like the single player locations. Knowledge of the level was very beneficial, as you could go straight towards gun locations and even hide in crevices that appear like walls, waiting for an unsuspecting soul to drop by. I believe the maze-like nature of these levels helps minimise screen watching, as players simply looking over the split screen boundary on the CRT TV may not view an identifiable part of the level. And so the games involve first running around trying to find a gun, and once sufficiently armed, running around trying to look for people to kill. The hunt is on. This second stage could take a long time, as the maps were large and you only had 4 players maximum, which really drove up the tension of the match. It kind of reminds me how battle royales like Fortnite and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds have a great build-up of tension throughout the match. You'd often start far from everyone, but you would have to rapidly acquire resources before the first encounter happens. And then when you do run into others, all hell breaks loose. And at this stage I should point out that gunfights in GoldenEye aren't great. Fights are messy as it relies on the player to point their gun in the general vicinity of the other player, and then leaving it up to Lady Auto-Aim to provide you with her blessings. And depending on your activated cheats, psychedelic Mona Lisas may get painted on the level's walls, and one or more monkeys may die. But fights are chaotic and often short-lived, which complement the long time you spend searching for someone. It's either kill or be killed. This cycle of tension build-up and release, I believe, is what made multiplayer so addictive. In the end of the game, players are given awards on how they played. Most professional for the person who scored the most headshots, most dishonourable for the person who put the most bullets into people's backs, Lemmings Award for the player with the most suicides, and so on. These awards added to the local party atmosphere of the multiplayer. The only thing multiplayer lacked, for when I was playing GoldenEye alone at home as a child, or at home by myself as an adult, was that it didn't have any bots, unlike Super Smash Bros. 64 or its spiritual sequel Perfect Dark. I mean, it didn't affect those local multiplayer sessions with friends, but it is what it is, and cause I got no friends, you've all had to watch boring footage of me playing with myself. Oh jeez, oh man, oh jeez, get this filth off the screen. Even though GoldenEye was based on a movie, the game will always be at the top of the list for me, followed by the movie and then by the character of Timothy Tiberius Bond in the Jalbert Broccoli cinematic universe. Or something, I'm not sure, it gets a bit murky. The point is, when I go to watch the movie, I am surprised to see all of the elements from the game. I get so impressed that the movie's directors so fully realised the game's level design and set pieces, like Bond's drop on the toilet guard, that is executed more elaborately as you can do more in the medium of film. But of course I'm being facetious, the game was based on the film, and it was the developers at Rare that so faithfully recreated the world of the movie. You can tell their love of the source material, from the level design, music, even to the secrets and the multiplayer inclusion, with multiple Bonds originally being playable, including Connery and Moore, except they didn't have the license to use those faces. You have the license to kill, but you don't have the license to use that face, I'm sorry. As a result, I'm more impressed by the low poly version of the art than the original art itself. And in fact, I would rather play the game than watch the movie anytime. So you might be asking yourself the question, Alex, I already clicked off this video 3 hours ago. To which I would reply, great question. Well, do I feel differently about the game, having to play it to get footage for this video? Obviously, aspects of GoldenEye haven't aged well. I mean, look at those graphics. Only when I'm 80 years old, medically blind, and drunk on alcoholic beverages, would I look at this and go, oh yeah, that's Harrison Ford. Curse you, dementia! But in 1997, this was Pierce Brosnan. But graphics I can forgive. On the upside, at least they avoided the uncanny valley, as these characters barely look human. And stylistically, everything is fine. I can clearly see my gun, and I can clearly see my targets to shoot with said gun. Sometimes I can see them both so well that I feel time has slowed down. Oh, wait, that's the frame rate drop. Yes, this game suffers from severe slowdowns at times that would make Microsoft PowerPoint blush. But I don't know, I can look past this stuff because I just love the attempt of capturing the movie in under 64 megabytes of data. The other downside is that the controls are very aged. I played the game again with a controller, which is fine. If you desire, you can play GoldenEye and Perfect Dark with mouse and keyboard on the computer. And it feels like, after years of wiping your butt with sandpaper, using 3-ply toilet paper for the first time. Point is, it's good. Modern shooter good. However, the game wasn't designed with such precise controls, and so on Asian difficulty, it is way too easy as enemies take 4 to 5 seconds to react to you. And with better controls, you can laser scope your name onto their forehead before they even draw their gun. And this footage is from 00 Agent difficulty, ladies and gentlemen. Using a modern emulator and a high-end PC to do the heavy emulation necessary, you can run the game with 4K resolution at 60 frames per second with mouse and keyboard, and the game looks bloody brilliant. Check out Grazlu's channel on how to play it yourself, and even some custom maps he created. And when the controls and visuals are brought up to the 21st century, it really shows how well the rest of the game stands up. But I didn't want to do that for this video, as you can tell by the image quality. I wanted to recreate the experience I had when I was younger, with a shitty resolution and the OG controls. And while I had challenges, particularly the slow aiming and the frame rate drops, and objective confusion caused by my outright refusal to read the English language, I cannot fault the brilliance of this game. Its single player missions are impeccably designed. There was a massive arsenal of guns, which each felt different and fun to use. The music was rad, and the cheats had an even greater radosity. And it was the genesis of multiplayer FPS on consoles. But more than that, it made me care about a movie that I hadn't seen, and a franchise I didn't know about. It is, quite simply, the best movie tie-in game of all time. And that is why I love GoldenEye 64.